So drawing is hard, but using reference photos makes it easier. I recently designed like 11 different dogs. Actually, I've been drawing dogs forever. Like that was what I always drew on like all my homework and stuff. Like I was just a dog doodler. And I was kind of obsessed with Scotty dogs for a long time. I drew a ton of those. So I should probably make a sticker. I would be like, that would be a nice little callback to my time as a kid. Anyway, I'm going to talk today about using reference photos to draw illustrations and, in my case, stickers. So the first thing that I did when I set out to draw my dogs, I actually drew all of these dogs twice, but before I even got into it, I pulled reference photos for all of them. So these are just some of the reference photos, and I cut them out a little bit of their photos too if I needed to move them around. But I basically put them all on one layer in Procreate, which is my favorite drawing app that I've talked about more in some other videos. And once they were all together like this in one layer, I got to sketching. So I used their general outlines to sketch in like a Procreate pencil brush. And so I have sketches for each dog. I even have a little pug in the corner that I haven't made into a final sticker yet, but one day. He has his tongue out, so that's pretty cute. And so I made all of their sketches based on the photos, and I just traced right on top of it so I could get their proportions right, because I just cannot stand when I don't get proportions right in drawings. And so to make sure that was all looking good, I used those reference photos. I pulled them from a website called Unsplash, which is a copyright-free photo website, just to be safe. But as long as your drawing doesn't look too much like the original photo, there's no issues with copyright infringement. I think it does get dicey once you have like drawings that start looking identical to photos that are copyrighted. So be careful with that. And I have another video about that. And there's actually a recent Supreme Court ruling on that I totally nerded out on in a previous video. So that is hopefully a good resource for using reference photos. So once the sketches are all done, I put them on a layer all together. It just makes it easier for me to flip the layers on and off if they're all together with one layer. And what I do is I turn down the opacity of the layer. So when it's at like full opacity, it's a little darker, but that just means that the lines are going to be more visible when you're making the final drawing on top of it. So I usually turn down the opacity to like 40%-ish. And then I just go ahead and start adding the color on top, directly on top of my sketch, but in a different layer. So that way the final image is on a completely different layer than the sketch, so the sketch can easily be deleted when the final product is done. And so in the end, I end up having a totally separate layer with my dog on top, and then I can flip off the sketch layer. When I am actually going in and adding the color, I pull the reference photo off to the side from the original sketch, and that's why this particular image is separated from the rest of the reference photos, so that I could just move it off to the side really easily. And then I use some of the color dropping features on Procreate to grab the colors that I want from the original photo, but I also adjust them myself depending on what I want the final product to look like. And because if you pull reference photos that have been filtered or have a lot of saturation or other sort of modifications to the colors, it may not look as true to life as you want. Or going the other way, your reference photo may be very true to life and you want to stylize it. So if you wanted to kind of make it look like they were all fun colors or all kind of leaned like blue tones or orange tones, then you could make those changes yourself. So I think the reference photo is really good for pulling colors as a starting point, but I don't always stick directly with that because it can end up looking really funky in the end, especially because a lot of reference photos, because their photos have a lot of gradients of color. So there's just like a million colors in the photos, whereas in this final product, there's probably only like 10 different colors or like different shades. So I try to simplify my illustrations color-wise, and obviously that also eliminates a lot of time because if you tried to copy every single color that's in a photo, there's going to be a million brushstrokes and a million colors, and it's going to take forever. So that's part of kind of the artistic element that you bring to it, even though this finished sticker does look a decent amount like the reference photo. You can definitely tell it's been stylized, and I put my own spin on it. So I think that's kind of what the whole artistic process is about, but the reference photos are really helpful as a starting point. So to pull a color directly from the reference photo, you just hold down your finger on the screen, and then you can drag around, and the dropper tool will show you what color in that half circle on top it's going to pull. And then once you release your finger, then that is the color that you have in the upper right hand corner, and that's the color that your brush pen will be. So I pretty much start all of my color processes from the reference photos that I'm using if I'm using a reference photo. So when I actually start to add the color in this drawing process, I color drop to find what color I'm looking for, and then I kind of just look at the reference photo and go off of my sketch, and then I add the colors on. I start with one layer. And once I've generally got that first layer of color in there, sometimes I will start a new layer, and then that way I can add brush strokes on top of the first layer, but I can also erase them without messing with that first layer. And then once I have the second layer or the second color the way I like it to look, then I will just pinch the two layers together to merge them together. You can also click merge down, and that will merge them. I just pinch them because it's easier. And then they become one layer, and then you can erase both at the same time if you want. But usually when I'm introducing a second color, I create a different layer initially, and that way I can manipulate each color individually until I know that I'm ready to combine them. And then usually at the end, I combine all my layers into one finished product, unless I know that it's some sort of design that I'm going to recolor in the future. In that case, it's a lot easier to keep the layers separated because you can change the colors of each individual layer a lot easier. But in the case of the dogs, I knew they were all going to be one layer when I saved the final file, and I wasn't going to recolor them in any way. So I merged the layers all together. And I actually drew these dogs twice. So this is the first draft here. And I did like a watercolor style with them, and it's cute. I still really like it, but I felt that I wanted to keep my style a little more consistent with the rest of the stickers that I've drawn, and I did recently draw a bunch of sea creatures, so I wanted the dog's style to match the sea creatures as well. So this watercolor style is something I ended up ditching even after all the dogs were done, and that's partially because the watercolor style also is semi-transparent, and so the background of the stickers couldn't be white, and so it would look kind of odd. So I redrew all of them, and I went in and added the color on them in my favorite Procreate brush, which is called Dry Brush, and I will talk about in a future video all of my favorite Procreate brushes, because I have a couple that are my go-to faves for sure, and Dry Brush is definitely one of them. So the final product is a little more color blocky. Jordan loves the bulldog. He's very scrunchable.
Important question. Do you have a favorite dog you've drawn?
Who is my favorite? That's tough. Let me look. Okay, the Husky and the German straight up are just not my favorites. Bulldog is really cute. I would have to say the Saint Bernard. I like the Saint Bernard a lot, actually. That's kind of a dark horse for me. Or a dark dog, if you will. And I also love the Corgi, because his tongue is also out. It's probably Bulldog, Dalmatian, or Golden, but when I was thinking which was my favorite, Golden came to mind. So maybe her. She's very cute. The reference photo is so beautiful too. Just like, she's so cute and drama, and like, she's a little model. It's beautiful. So maybe the Golden, or maybe the Corgi's little butt. But I love them all. I'm really happy with how they turned out. Actually, it took me like 3 years to get through drawing all of these. Actually, I should look in my file and see. Yeah, I first made that file in, it had to have been like the summer of 2022. So 2 full years before I got these dogs done. And I spent probably 1,000,000 hours on this. Let's see the statistics. So 15 hours just to make the first draft, and then by the time I had the final draft of all these stickers, because I drew them twice, 23 hours and 28 minutes. So a lot of work went into you.